Well, hi, everybody. This is Glenn the Geek, founder of the Horse Radio Network and host of Horses in the Morning daily podcast for the last 14 years. We just went over 3,500 episodes. Welcome to the WESA Retail Roundup. The Retail Roundup is your go-to virtual hub for all things retail. Join panel discussions, learn from webinars, share your thoughts, ask questions, and connect with the community. We host a virtual event or share educational content every Monday via the Retail Roundup Facebook group. If you're not a member of that, go to Facebook and search for Retail Roundup and join us today. And today I'm very excited because we're going to chat with a true retail expert, Ashley Alderson. She is founder of the Boutique Hub and a champion for small businesses, is an entrepreneur and a speaker dedicated to empowering others to live their best lives. She's been to WESA many times. You've probably seen her there. And we're just going to have fun today geeking out on all things retail. So, Ashley, thanks for joining us today.
Glenn, I'm so excited. We are going to geek out on all things retail today. I can't wait.
I don't know if a lot of listeners know, but I owned a retail store back in the early days of the internet, and we had like the second tack shop online. VTO Saturday, I think, was first. And so I was in the way, and we had a brick and mortar store and the whole thing. So, and then I consulted with retailers for a long time after that. So we truly are going to have fun. But for those that don't know, what is the Boutique Hub?
Love to answer this question. So the Boutique Hub, when I think of a boutique, I think of an independent retailer. And you're an independent mom and pop business, whether you're online or you're brick and mortar. I don't care if it's tack or kids' clothes or beauty products. I think a boutique can mean a lot of things, and they're really special in today's day and age. So the Boutique Hub, our mission is to be the central connection point for the global boutique industry. So everything a small business owner could need under one roof. And that's our membership, our podcast, the events that we host. And we really try to focus on three things, Glenn. The first is community. So we connect over 100,000 retailers from around the world, and we kind of group them by what is their niche, what's their experience, how do they sell, and just try to help people get answers to questions on a daily basis and collaborate in community over competition with one another. And the second thing we do is provide education. So a massive training library, every retail tool, template, checklist, kind of up to the minute education on whatever is happening in our industry, all inside of the Boutique Hub. And then the third thing that we really focus on is wholesale. So how do we connect independent retailers with really quality wholesale brands of all types, whether they're connecting in person at a place like WESA or online on a marketplace or inside of our own private Facebook groups at the Boutique Hub. So any tool a retailer could need, we try to bring it in-house at the Boutique Hub and provide it in one place.
Where does the cutoff, when do you become not a boutique?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think of like chains, for an example. So I think of a chain of boutiques like Apricot Lane. To me, it's still a boutique because there is an independent curated facet of that. But once you become, I think, a big box retailer, right, with, I'll say, more than 25 locations, or it's a corporately owned structure with not an independent, locally owned component to it, to me, that's the cutoff. But it's not black and white. I think there's some gray area. I just love to see small business owners that have skin in the game calling the shots.
When did you start? When did this start?
11 years ago.
Oh, okay.
Ago. Yeah.
So you were really at the beginning of social media too, really coming to its forefront.
Yeah. If I go back to even how the Boutique Hub started, I think all great things happen by accident. This really was not by my design.
I'd like to say we all planned this, but we know.
Yeah. The idea of like in school when they're like, you need to have a very detailed business plan. And this is exactly how it's going to go. That's not how it works. But I grew up in North Dakota, Glenn. So kind of the middle of nowhere, which I wouldn't have any other way. I grew up on a ranch in a very small town, no stoplights, and loved that experience. But also knew that when I traveled outside of that local community, and for me, this is my rodeo background and Western upbringing. When I was traveling across the country, I was finding these cute boutiques at rodeos in Reno or, a downtown on the East Coast. Didn't matter. It was all these places, but I didn't know how to find those things for myself. And so I grew up after college working in economic development. Retail, online was still new. Social media was still new. And I was kind of in the trenches helping people build businesses for a long time. And then finally I thought, well, I love finding these boutiques all over the world. How do I bring them together in one place so that people like me could shop them? And that was the idea. But what happened by accident was when I brought all these retailers together of all types, I realized it wasn't that they needed a platform for consumers to shop them. They just needed business advice. They had no idea how to use social media that was brand new, or to run Facebook ads that was brand new, or really just how to manage inventory smarter. And so I'm a big, it's not what, it's who you know type of person. So I thought I'll bring as many experts together as I can. And if I can't answer your question, I'm going to find somebody else who can. And that's how the Boutique Hub really grew and evolved.
It's funny, when I do keynote speeches at podcast conferences, the first thing I say every time is it's not who you know, it's who knows you.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. So for retailers that are thriving, this is a tough environment. We all know it, right? And, those of us that have been around a while we've seen environments like this before. This is not the first time this has happened. So the ones that are thriving in this environment, what are they doing that the ones that aren't thriving aren't doing?
I love this question. So
I just thought I'd get right into the hard one right away.
Let's get to the meat and potatoes. So we all know that retail is just a very cyclical environment, right? Like you said, what goes up will come down, it will go back up again. We can expect that these changes are going to happen. And I think when we're in a cycle like this, the most important thing first that we can focus on is how do we slow down to speed up? Like my parents always said, slow is smooth and smooth is fast. And specifically in rodeo, they would tell me that slow is smooth and smooth is fast. And I think in business, it's the same thing. When we feel like times are tough, oh my gosh, I've got to do more. I've got to speed up. I better try this and this and this. Your heart rate advances and you're breathing shallower, and pretty soon you're not thinking clearly and we're kind of just panicking, which creates fear and tunnel vision, right? But if we can just slow down and go back to the basics and really understand what is working in our business, that's the place to start. And what is working in my viewpoint today, the retailers that I'm seeing, number one is community. So people don't buy the products you're selling, they buy the way you make them feel, right? So how are you actually creating a sense of community in your business where people want to come together, not to be in your space, but also to be in one another's space? And I think that's something that sets independent retail apart from the big box stores. Big box stores don't always give that same emotional experience with a product that an independent retailer can. So events, experiences, having a Facebook group, making sure that you are somehow a face of your business and you're engaging in daily dialogue with your customer. That's what builds community. The second thing I think that's really working right now is really going back to what's curated and unique. And I know, in terms of like equine and Western or English, like we have a very specific customer. And I think it's easy for us to look like one another really quickly. So what makes us different from one another? What can someone find with me that they can't necessarily find with somebody else? So what's the more curated products? I say this a lot in terms of apparel businesses that I work with right now that are battling the idea of Shein and Temu and all of these overseas knockoff sites. Again, it's going back to quality and how am I curating pieces that can't necessarily be knocked off immediately? And if I've created community first and people trust and can see my curation process, they're going to believe even deeper, wholeheartedly into the products that I'm curating. So community, and then again, the curated products and quality. And then the third thing I think is really critical that's working right now is branding. We've got to go back to branding. Photography, critical. Merchandising, critical. Making sure we are creating daily engaging content on social media and then having a sincere traffic plan to back that traffic and that content up that can create real brand recognition for us online and in store. I think that's a huge component. And I do believe that businesses have to have some sort of omni-channel experience with that brand. It can't be one and not the other.
So, obviously, we've all heard it before. You've heard it 100 times. My business is so small. It's just me and one store and maybe a mobile unit or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I just don't have time for all that social media stuff. Mm-hmm. And I don't have the money for to hire somebody to do the social media stuff. How do you address that one? Because you've heard it 1,000 times.
Yeah, I think there's a fundamental difference between being a CEO and an entrepreneur. And it doesn't have anything to do with the size of your business. I think it has everything to do with the mindset that you keep. And so we all start with this idea that we're an entrepreneur, we're hustling to make it work, we're just trying to get the idea to go forward. Entrepreneurs typically have a relationship that is different with time and money than CEOs do. So an entrepreneur will value money because they're trying to make it, and they'll save.
Or they don't have it.
Right, they're trying to make it. They don't have it, right? Yeah. And so they're DIYing their way forward, and that's costing them more time, right? Just try to save and penny pitch to get ahead. Where a CEO will recognize, the only thing in this world that is limited is time. Money in this world is infinite. I have to create a new relationship with time in order to make more money. So when I think about like that fundamental difference, where can I invest, even if it's a really small incremental piece, in order to create more time that therefore creates more money and I can get ahead and scale? So an example of this would be, I'm going to create a website, right? I'm going to go to Shopify. I'm going to create a website. If I'm in the entrepreneurial mindset and I'm saying, I'm so small and I don't have enough money, I better save my way forward and DIY this project. It may take me, I'll say 4 weeks to build this website. And maybe by the end of the month that I've invested into this website, I've launched it and I've sold $1,000. Where if I'm a CEO and I'm like, okay, how do I invest what I have in order to create more time to leverage and scale? I've created the website in 1 week. And now I've got 3 additional weeks to sell $1,000 a week to get ahead. And yeah, maybe it cost me $1,000 up front. So what would you rather have? Would you rather have saved the $1,000 it took you to create the website to make $1,000 on the back end? Or would you rather be the CEO that invested the $1,000 on the front end to make $4,000 on the back end or $3,000 on the back end? So it's just a mindset shift. I don't believe anyone is too small to make online or to make social media work. There is a way to do it, but I think it's got to start with your mindset.
And you don't have to hire somebody full time. You don't have to. There are plenty of people out there, consultants out there, entrepreneurs like you out there that are in this space. And I would say, from my experience in the past, you got to find somebody that knows horses, though. We've all seen that mistake where they're hiring social media people who post the wrong pictures. And, you've seen it. I've seen it. We've all laughed about it. There was one last week that made the rounds that was a classic example of that. So find somebody in social media in the horse world. Like I don't know if you agree or disagree, but
like someone doing Beyonce's album cover, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, there's one. Not a horse person.
No, totally agree with that.
So you have a phrase, community over competition. What do you mean by that? It's right there on your homepage, is blaring the first thing you read.
Yeah, it's so important. It's the absolute fabric that we built our community on. And it's just simply the idea that a rising tide lifts all ships, right? I think about a couple of examples. When I go to a store, right, and I walk down the wine aisle or the bread aisle, Glenn, do you ever do this and you look around and you're like, how are there so many different types of white bread?
Yes.
Wow, it's got to go stale, right? Or how are there so many different bottles of wine? Like, who buys all this wine? But the amazing thing about the bread and the wine is there's a customer for everyone. And when they team up, right, and we create more wine drinkers, no matter what they're drinking, it's better for the industry as a whole, or for, bread eaters. Maybe that's a bad example. And when I think about this in retail, this started really with my experience in economic development before I started the Boutique Hub. And I was doing economic development in a small town in North Dakota, and there was a Western store and a embroidery shop and kind of a department store on the main street in my small town. And the Western store was actually going out of business. And the owners of the department store came into my office one day and they're like, Ashley, you've got to help us find somebody to buy the Western store or to go into that space that's going to provide the same service. And I just kind of shook my head. I didn't understand. I said, why would you want somebody to go in that space? That was your competition, so to speak. Now you could take on that category and be bigger yourself, right? They're like, no, wherever 2 or more like businesses come together, we become a destination. And I was like, oh man, light bulb moment. And to me, that's what the independent retail industry is all about, or Western, doesn't matter what you sell. But when we can work together and create more consumers of our end product, it's better off for all of us. So why not share tips, strategy, and experience with one another so that we all can grow in this environment?
I started in the insurance business 40 years ago, and the first thing I was taught by my mentor was one insurance agent in town will go broke, 2 will both make money. So work together with the other one.
That's right.
It's the same concept, right? It's
right.
And I think we see that a little bit. I think we do see that in the horse world. I think that retailers do talk and work together. I saw that when I was in it too. We were comparing notes even in the early days of online. Is how do we make this work? We're figuring it out. I mean, in those days they're still sending checks, so you couldn't even take payments online. Mm-hmm. But you talked about Temu. I have a nephew who runs a multi-million dollar business that was all basically junk stuff out of China. Yeah. 7 warehouses filled to the ceiling, and it's just junky, crappy stuff. But he sold $10 million worth. And I talked to him yesterday, and he's going to be out of business because one, the tariffs, number one, but also Temu, right? And what they're doing to the space. And that's how it's also affecting us in the horse world. So how do you compete with that? You talked about it a little bit, but expand upon it a little more.
Well, I just think, it's a change in our industry. It's like the rise of the internet, which was new to a lot of people. It's a change in consumer behavior. So I don't think we're going to completely go head to head and compete and change or take away what's happening with that or with Shein. Now, I would love to see some different government regulation that could help American small business owners get ahead here. But I don't think we can fight this battle head on. I think we have to recognize this is a time for us to shift and evolve. And what I said earlier about really leaning into community and really leaning into what's curated and going back to what's quality, I think are really important aspects to consider. There's a consumer out there today. She's, a woman she's a horse owner. And yeah, she, wants to find some cheap fast fashion or some cheap horse tack on Temu. But she's also driving a $100,000 dually truck. And she's wearing $400 Lucchese boots. And she's got the latest Ariat jeans. And she's got a very expensive handmade leather handbag. So I think the consumer, yes, they want some of these cheap things, but they still want the quality staple pieces in other areas of their life. And so we can't, step over a dollar to pick up a dime. We've got to remain focused on what makes us different.
And know our customer base, because it's different all across the country. With every boutique, they all have a slightly different customer base. I like Aldi as an example. I read an article the other day, and I got to thinking about Aldi. Aldi is expanding. They're one of the fastest growing food chains out there. Yeah. And yet you go into an Aldi, and you were talking about the bread example, the white bread specifically. And, you go into a Publix and there's 85 white breads. You go into an Aldi and there's 5, but there are 5 that you haven't seen before, right? They have all of these categories, but they have a lot less of it. And it's usually ones that I haven't seen before. So they truly made themselves stand out by not being like the rest, right? And that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's a really good example. I honestly hadn't considered Aldi in that description before, but that's exactly right. So how do you make yourself stand out? And it's a combination of, yes, what they haven't seen before in terms of product mix, but it's also the staple, like going back to the idea of relying on branding, right? And this is what the equine industry and Western industry does really well. I want my name brand boots. I want my name brand jeans. I want my name brand saddles. Those are quality and staple pieces I will not compromise on. So how do we lean deeper into name brands, but then also curate the pieces that are just unique outside of those brands as well?
Yeah, because that's going to be your add-on buy. You're going to buy your Ariat boots because you went there for your Ariat boots, but you're going to see this other thing that you hadn't seen before and go, I'm going to give that a try. That's your add-on right there.
And I think that's important, like when you're going to shop a show like WESA, right? And you're going and you're shopping the vendors in that show, but you're also, when you're in that building, you have so many other opportunities, even, on different floors to explore really unique add-on pieces that you don't always see everywhere else. So capitalize on what's unique in the space you're in.
And they usually have lower buy-ins too, which helps. Yes. You're not putting out as much. So we're heading into the fourth quarter. One of the most important things that it may be too late for this actually, but what are the most important things that retailers should focus on in terms of inventory? I think inventory, probably you're going to have bought most of it by now, or you're going to have ordered most of it by now. But how about marketing and customer engagement? And I think this is the quarter where marketing and customer engagement and being different and being unique is more important than any other quarter, obviously, because it's Christmas.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the first thing, most people have already bought their inventory, so that's set. But I think what you first need to think about is, how does my inventory actually solve someone's problem? So who is my customer? Where are they going? Who are they buying for? And then how do I merchandise and market my inventory in a way that actually solves a problem? So I love the idea of marketing in collections. So this is my going home for the holidays collection. This is my stocking stuffer collection. This is my gifts for dad collection. This is my gifts under 25 collection, whatever it might be. You're just really slicing and dicing what you've already bought and marketing it in a way that solves a problem and makes someone's life easier. Yes. So Target does a great job of this. For example, I go to Target and Target knows my problems before I even know. Like I get there and they're marketing me back to school pencils in June. And I'm like, we just got out of school. Why are you trying to sell me pencils for my kids? But because I want to, in my mind, I want to be a good mom. and I don't want my kid to have like the ugly backpack, I'm going to go ahead and capitalize on what they're offering me immediately, even before I really need it. So they're solving my problem even before I know I have it. So I think that's number one. Number two for the holidays is, as you're looking at that inventory and you're planning out, how am I going to sell this inventory? Think about what is a promotion versus what is a sale. It's easy to try to get in that trap of competing with the big box stores and thinking, I've got to do a 20% off store-wide or site-wide sale in order to get people through the door or to move this inventory. But everybody's buying over the holiday season, and they are not asking these big box stores for a sale in order to buy something. So what's a promotion? What's a BOGO? What's a spin the wheel at checkout? What's a pop the balloon at checkout? What is a free gift with purchase? What is a free gift for the first 25 people in line? What is a January bonus buck promotion I can do so people buy something now and they get $10 in January bucks so I can get them back after the first of the year? So think promotion, but not blanket sale. Because when we do blanket sales, we mark down the diamonds with the dirt. And we just really have to move the dirt, not the diamonds. So that's
we need
second.
a T-shirt that says that, by the way, for a retailer.
I know, right? The third thing I think is really important for the holidays is making sure you have a traffic plan. So I could go.
What do you mean by that?
We could nerd out on this whole thing, Glenn, but
Okay.
when I say traffic plan, I have to be able in my marketing to equate, I have this sales goal, and that means I need this many people in the door to hit this goal. And how I do that would be, I would take my sales goal for the month. I'll just say by the month. You could break this up by the week, by the day, by the year, however you want. I'll say by the month. So I'll take my sales goal this month. I'll divide it by my average order value. That gives me how many transactions I know I need this month. And you can split this online versus in-store, like running two separate calculations. So I take my transactions divided by my average conversion rate. Again, online, in-store, different conversion rates. And that gives me the amount of traffic I need to hit that transaction goal and that sales goal. So then when I say, okay, I need this much traffic, then marketing becomes not so subjective. And it tells me, okay, I know if I send this many emails, if I host this many events, if I run Facebook ads, if I run Google local ads, I know that I can get this much traffic to hit the goal. So I think that makes your job easier as a business owner. And if you have someone doing social media or marketing on your team, it makes their job measurable. And then when they come and say, oh, I'm doing such a great job for you, I should get a raise, you can say, okay, well, but did you? Are these metrics being met, right? We're putting out all this social media content. Is it successful and is it worthwhile? A traffic plan would tell me if it is or if it isn't. So I think we need that year round, but it's just really important during the holidays. And then the fourth thing I think for the holidays, it's important is I love Small Business Saturday. It's one of my favorite days of the year. But you know what I don't like about it? I don't like that it comes after Black Friday. It's an
after they've just spent 90% of their money at Target.
Yeah, drives me crazy. So we have a global event called Pink Friday. It's a boutique and independent retail focused day. It's always the Friday before Black Friday every year. I believe this is the 7th year we've done Pink Friday, and it's on November 22nd. So again, Friday before Black Friday. And it's a nationwide, worldwide day for just independent retailers to collaborate with one another. And then the entire motto and the focus is to shop small first. So shop small first.
I'm writing this down.
I'll send you all the details.
Okay.
But you can sign, I mean, we have free resources, we have graphics, we have press releases to send to social media or to your local media. We have all kinds of tools if you guys want. Again, totally free. We just want to get the word out about small businesses and independent retailers. And the most important thing you can do with Pink Friday is A, of course, collaborate with your local businesses, but B, tell your local media stations. So whether it's TV, radio, independent, like women's magazine, whatever it is, I think the media wants to tell the story of Black Friday on a very broad scale and a very big box scale. And we let the statistics of Black Friday really dictate what's happening in retail. I would love to see it if independent retailers could tell their own story before Black Friday happened. Here's what it really means to be a small business owner in 2024. So through Pink Friday, through that media collaboration before the cycle gets so crazy with that holiday weekend, I just want to play offense and not defense when it comes to retail marketing.
I love that idea. As a matter of fact, I wrote it down because we'll cover that on Horses in the Morning on that Friday.
Awesome.
There's another one that this is coming from the horse husband, right? They call me America's horse husband. I'm going to give you a horse husband gripe right now. I live in Ocala. There's 10 tack shops within, I'm one of the lucky ones that has 10 tack shops in 10 miles. Yet at the holidays, what I want to do as a horse husband, and I know what a lot of horse women want to do too, is go in there. We don't have a lot of time anymore. We want it to be easy. Everybody wants it to be easy.
Yeah.
And shopping, we want to be easy too. Why don't you have gift baskets made up? And we used to do this, and we did it very successfully. For the farrier, for your massage therapist, for the barn owner, have gift baskets made up as gift baskets. And the way we always did is we took one item that was very profitable. We put it in that gift basket, and then we took all the lesser items and put it in there too. They might not have been quite as profitable, or they just weren't as high a margin as the others. But that one item we wanted to get the margin on was in there. And we sold 100 of those gift baskets every year because people want it to be easy. They want to walk in. What was the one that sold the sausage at the mall for years and years? And the gift baskets with the cheese and the sausage and
I know what you're talking about, but I couldn't think of it. Yeah.
Well, there's a reason they sold bazillions of them. Is it because it was easy, right? I don't know why everybody isn't doing that. I really don't.
Totally agree. My first experience ever with this concept was.
Can I add one thing before you go on? And you don't mark that down. It's full price.
That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, you can add a little padding into that margin.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, in economic development, my first experience with this in economic development was the local flower shop in my town used to send out an email and say, hey, it's Administrative Assistance Day. And she sent it to the Chamber of Commerce list. Hey, it's Administrative Assistance Day. We have flowers and gift baskets available. Do you want to spend this, or this? And as humans, we go for the middle example, right? And typically that's, our highest margin item if we're smart, because we know people are going to go for the middle example. But I thought, wow, she made my life easier. I didn't even know it was Administrative Assistance Day. I could have looked like a complete dork if I didn't take advantage of this. Of course, I'm going to go for it. And so to me, collections and gift baskets and gift guides, that's exactly what we should be doing today. Make someone's life easy.
And you can do that online too, very easily. That can be shipped just like everything else. It can be shipped. Well, there's my horse husband pet peeve is, and you know what do people do when it's not easy? Nothing. They don't do anything. They don't do anything. They go, I'll get to that later, and they never do.
Yeah.
So that's my biggest pet peeve at the holidays in a boutique market, in a niche market like ours, is make it easy.
You know what? Can I add another idea to that, Glenn? So here's a strategy. I teach this to all of our retailers inside of the hub. So if I want to really, let's say my audience is women, right? One of the main sub-audiences I want to market to over the holidays, of course, is the husband. It's the man. So the way I would do this is I would host a gift guide, like a wish list with the women in my audience. I would say, hey, Sarah, come in. Tell me the products that you love. Tell me your size. Tell me your shoe size. Tell me what's on your holiday wish list. What have you loved that you bought from us before? Like all of those evaluating questions. And then I would say, okay, what's your husband's contact information? What's his phone number? What's his email? What's your birthday? What's your anniversary? Can I market to him? And I would do this in type form, or I would do it in Google Forms and host a giveaway. Like, hey, it's, I'm giving away $100 gift card if you fill out this survey for me. Well, then I can go back and I've got Glenn's information. I've got your email address. I've got your phone number, and I can reach out not only over the holidays, but I can over Valentine's Day, I can over your anniversary, and I can over the birthday. And now I've got an opportunity to make Glenn look like a hero all year long because I've got this list of what Sarah already wants and is looking for.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. The other thing we used to do is, and this was very successful, more than we thought. We used to do a discount as we got closer to Christmas. We marketed this to the horse women, but if there was a gift certificate that a male bought, we'd give them a 15% or 10% discount. And we know that most males screw up buying for their horse women. I do too. So they'd rather get a gift card, and that just made it easy too. And then the wives went and said, hey, look, buy this gift card here. You're going to get a discount if you use your own name. And we'd sell bigger ones than any other gift cards we'd sell all year long. They're always larger. Because then if you're buying a gift card, you don't want to look cheap.
Yes, that is exactly right. That's so smart.
Yeah. So what consumer behavior trends are you currently seeing in the retail industry, particularly for boutiques, niche markets, Western apparel, things like that?
Yeah. Well, I think we kind of hit on it a little bit ago, and that's just, we saw in 2021 and 2022, especially like post stimulus money, right? We just saw this massive increase in discretionary spending. People were buying on wants more than they were on needs. And now we're just seeing the consumer, take a little bit longer to make that choice. Where they were, buying 2 or 3 things, they've slimmed it down to 1 or 2 things, or they're waiting a little bit longer to make that initial purchase, but they're buying higher priced, higher quality items versus the lower quality items they know that they're going to burn through rather quickly. So on a scale, the boutiques that we see that have been selling lower end items primarily, those tend to be the ones we see struggling a little bit more. But the retailers that have a better mix of high and low, but do have some of those higher end, more expensive brand name products, we're seeing them really have a very steady flow of traffic and still have that demand. But it's got to be a mix. Like you said, you talked about the add-on sale earlier. We've got to have the brand name and the quality piece, but we still have to have some of those lower, faster pieces to mix in there so that we can still have some of that impulse purchase along the way.
So, right now with what you're seeing, we're seeing, you take a look at restaurant chains and any other chain, you're seeing stores closing, and these are the large, conglomerates that are closing stores like the CVS's and the Walgreens of the world, right? Are you seeing a decrease in boutiques? Is it staying about the same? I mean, we always see them come and go. We have for the last 100 years, right? What trend are you seeing there? And are the ones that are staying, are they doing something different? Are they picking up the slack?
That's a great question. Yeah, we are seeing a lot of, I would call it an industry cleanse right now. And I think part of that has to do with being a boutique owner is a fairly easy entry business. Right? I can go get my tax.
It's like podcasting.
Right? You could call yourself a boutique owner tomorrow, Glenn, right? Like you just sell one more product.
But podcasting's easy entry business and hard to stay in.
That's right.
And by the way, congratulations. Quick plug for yours. 300 episodes. That's darn good.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we've got a big milestone, 2.5 million downloads coming up here very shortly. And we've got some amazing guests.
What's it called?
Really special. It's a Boutique Chat. It is a podcast called Boutique Chat where we talk about all things retail. We also talk about all things wholesale as well.
Oh, good. And you can find that on any podcast player, I'm sure.
That's right.
All right. Go ahead.
All right. No, so the industry definitely is going through a cleanse. It's an easy entry business. And so I think there was a lot of people, again, especially around that 2020, 2021 timeframe that had more time on their hands. All of a sudden they were new to working from home, whatever it might be, thinking, oh, I'll create this side hustle. And we saw really a huge shift in focus in boutiques. And now we're seeing people realize, wow, inventory management's hard. Like everyone listening can just give me a right hand amen. Inventory management is really hard and it is a full-time deal. And so we are seeing some turnover in our industry. The ones, however, that I would say are growing and, really steady are the ones that are more omni-channel. So they've grown either a significant brick and mortar and they're adding online as another channel of income, or maybe they started as online and they've decided they want to do more pop-ups. They're definitely the retailer that has created a Facebook group or created a sense of community around their brand. And they're using lifestyle content just as much as they're using product content to grow their business.
So do you think brick and mortar is going away? That's been the thing that everybody's been saying about the last 20 years since online started.
Yeah, no, I don't see that. I think brick and mortar is just as viable as ever. Again, post 2020, we saw a huge resurgence in brick and mortar and people wanting to go back and touch and feel and be in the space and have that experience. And I think it's still true. People want events and experiences and a reason to get out of the home and a reason to connect with other people. I think we have a real epidemic of loneliness in the world today. And I think that leads to things like, the couch jockeys that we see and the disagreements on social media, especially in a political climate like we have now. And I think people want a reason to feel good and be with other people. And brick and mortar retail offers a way to do that.
How can you tell as a store owner, as a boutique owner, how can you tell, how can you predict the customer demand for, especially in niche markets like ours? And I'd say the Western world's even worse than the English world as far as fashion and things coming and going quicker.
Yeah.
Well, definitely faster than the English world, which for about 100 years hadn't changed at all. So how do you predict that? How do you know what's going to be the next biggest thing, or don't you?
I think there's always, a level of gamble that comes into retail, but I think what really aids in our favor, and I'll speak specific to Western because I'm not as familiar with English, but the rise of the Western influencer was something that I was a part of from the very beginning. We used to have a fashion magazine we owned called Western Runway. And we did a lot of like kind of boots on the ground, taking pictures of, what people were wearing at the NFR, or rodeo wives, or, Shaylee Ham, one of the first Western influencers, profiling people like that who were just, creating lifestyle content. And so as a retailer, if I'm thinking about what's going to trend, I think it's important for all of us to really be aware of what's happening in that Western influencer space. What are people wearing when they go to the NFR and to rodeos? And what are people posting on Instagram? And what's happening on TikTok? Because the consumer is already seeing it. The consumer sees it happening with a Western influencer, and that creates immediate demand, which is tough if you're a retailer trying to buy a year in advance. It's tough to plan that inventory.
Who saw Yellowstone coming, right?
Oh my gosh, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Yellowstone, or the rise of, did you see Bella Hadid in New York City this week? I mean, how cool is that? Western is cool again. Ralph Lauren doing the Olympic outfits, uniforms. I mean, it's also so impactful. So I think Western's definitely here to stay mainstream for a long time.
So we only have a few minutes left, and I want to go back to WESA. You've been to WESA. I've been there maybe 40 times between WESA and Ada. It's a lot. And people I always see this posted pre-WESA is, what advice do you have for boutique owners to make the most? They have 2 or 3 days. There's 1,000 booths. What do they do to, again, use their time wisely, right? What we talked about earlier. Do you have advice for that on going to the trade show and using that time wisely?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, I think the in-person trade show experience is not going anywhere, just like brick and mortar is not going anywhere.
I hope not.
Yeah, no, it's not. People still need to come. Retailers still need to come and touch and feel and experience, goods in person. And yes, there is going to be a lot of online supplementation throughout the year, but that doesn't replace that in-person experience. So I think it's always still worthwhile to go. I think in order to make the most of the experience, though, a couple things have to happen. First, you've got to really have a great inventory plan before you get there. So how are you tracking your current inventory performance? Do you have an up-to-date point of sale system? Let's go all the way back to that. Does your point of sale system allow for tracking of sales by category, tracking of markdowns, tracking of overall margin, tracking of return? What is your bread and butter in your business? And are you prepared to go back and buy in the correct categories? So having a buying plan is important. There's so many great consultants out there. Management One, I'll give them a shout out. Like, there's so many great people who can help you plan your inventory smart. So come with a plan. And then I think when you get to the show, a couple things. I would not feel pressure to place your orders on day one. I think day one for me, you could use it in 2 different strategies. Either day one, you knock out the vendors you need to see, and you already have a planned order with. Like, I know I'm going to go see Ariat. I know I'm going to go see, Resistol, whatever it might be. So I could knock out those orders. Or if I'm new, I could use day one just to get the lay of the land. Go around, touch, feel, take photos, write down vendors, get cards, get line sheets. And then on day 2 is the time, if I took day 1 just to experience, then on day 2, I can place those key orders, but know that I have homework with these vendors that I want to follow up with after the show. Or if you're somebody who on day 1 places all your big brand orders, day 2 is simply for discovery, for walking the rest of the show. And again, touching, feeling, taking photos, and getting some inspiration. But I just wouldn't feel pressure that you have to spend every open to buy dollar that you have immediately while you're at the show. Use it to network, use it to build partnerships, use it to get to know brands that you also want to follow up with after the show's over.
And no matter what business we're in, it's still relationships, right? It's a relationship business. Yeah. And those relationships today, people that we met 40 trade shows ago are still some of our best friends today. And they were vendors back then, and they're retired now. It's just, the relationships that you build are going to be the thing that carry you forward. And they're going to be the people that help you out when you need help, or tell you first when there's a new product coming out. They contact you first. It's so important with any business, your relationship with your customer, but also your relationship with your vendor.
Ultimately, we're all just in the people business.
That's it. Sales is people.
It's just people. It's just solving people's problems. That's all it is.
That's one thing that hasn't changed in 40 years. Sales is still just a relationship business. It has never changed. It's building a relationship so they trust you and they want to buy from you. That's it.
That's right.
In your case, as a podcaster, we say they come for the content, but they stay for the host. If they don't like you as a host, they're not hanging around. They're the only think about podcasts or even media that you consume. You're going for the content, but you're only hanging around if you like the people giving you the content.
That is so true.
That's true of the store you walk into. If you just happen to have that one employee working that day that's in a bad mood, and that guy comes, or male or female, comes in for the first time and they have a bad experience, they came for the content for your store, for the buying something, but they're not coming back because they didn't like you. That's so important in boutique. That's the only thing you have right now. That's what you have. You have selection, you have everything else, but they're coming back because they like you. Because they can buy all that other stuff somewhere else, right? But they can't buy you somewhere else.
That is the name of the game. They can go online, they can go to Shein, they can go to Temu, they can go to any big box store they want. But again, people don't remember the products they bought from you. They remember the way that you made them feel.
Exactly. And they remember you. I think we have a little bit of an inferiority complex sometimes as boutique owners because we think it is the product. We like to throw it on the product because that's less pressure than it being on us, right? Psychologically, it's less pressure. So psychologically, we can handle it more. Yeah. But no, they're coming back because they like you.
That's so true. Why. And you know what else, Glenn? It's not even that they want you to be perfect. I think there's pressure and they like me. Oh my gosh, I have to live up to this idea of who they think I should be. But I think people just want to know that you're real and relatable, just like
be human. Are.
Yeah. So when I think about
they don't want perfect, actually, because they can't relate to that. Nobody can relate to that.
No. And you know who does this better than anyone? Gen Z. Our youngest demographic right now that are now consumers, they do it better than anyone. They rely on apps like Be Real or TikTok or Snapchat, where it's instant, it's unfiltered, it's in the moment. You know, they want the real raw stuff. They did not grow up with beautiful Instagrams or, you know, being new to social media and feeling like I have to have this all together before I put it out in the world. They just want to know real, raw, in the moment, what's happening. So I think that's important that every retailer, whether you're new to social media or you've been around for a while, like ditch the perfection, just get the content out there and get your personal lifestyle content out there as well. What's happening in your life on a daily basis is just as important as what's happening in the store.
They come for the content, they stay for the host. It's the same in the store. So where can people find you? Where can they find all your stuff?
Well, if you love podcasts, which you're here, and I know you guys do, if you love this type of content, join me on Boutique Chat. That's our own podcast. Otherwise, if you're information or looking for information on the education and the community and all the things we do, it's theboutiquehub.com. Our membership is really where we put all of our time, energy, and focus in connecting retailers from around the world. So that's the best bet to really work with the Boutique Hub. Otherwise, we do have a showroom in Dallas Market. We are on the 13th floor. We're at every market. We'll be at WESA. So come and see us in person too if you have a chance.
It's a lonely business. Having friends in the business and people you can communicate with and people you can ask questions to like you do is so important because otherwise it's a lonely business.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us today on WESA's Retail Roundup. If you missed part of this, it'll also be available on the podcast. Search Wisdom by WESA. I'll have that out by tomorrow morning on your podcast player. And you can catch all the other episodes we put out there as well. The WESA Trade Show YouTube channel, this will be available there too. And also the WESA website, wesatradeshow.com. The next Retail Roundup will be on the 23rd. So that's next week at 2 p.m. Actually, this one's at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we're returning guest Barbara Wald is going to be on to join us again. So you can find that. Just go to Retail Roundup on our Facebook group and you'll find all the details there. And of course, you can find me at Horses in the Morning, one of the longest running daily podcasts in the world. And we just have fun every day talking about horses and meeting cool people and just having a lot of fun. So you can join me there. Just search for Horses in the Morning on any podcast player. And that's it for today. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it, Ashley.
Love being here, Glenn. Thanks so much.